Hi there, and welcome to a review of Never 7: The End of Infinity, a visual novel released in the early 2000s by Kid on the PC, Dreamcast, PSP, and no one else cares because this game was never released in North America. But fear not, those of you who wish to play this ridiculously obscure game while watching this ridiculously obscure review show. Never 7 was fully translated in August of 2012 by a group of dedicated translators whose fantastic work you can check out here. Never 7 is the first entry in the Infinity series, which includes one of my favorite games of all time, Ever 17. And the writers also did works like 999 and Virtue's Last Reward. The same writers means that there's a lot of similar elements, like a giant mystery plot and talk about pussy. I meant Schrodinger's cat, you dick. So of course, when I heard that Never 7 was fully translated, I had to give it a shot. And after playing the whole way through, what's the verdict? Well, although it's nowhere near as strong or compelling as its sequels, or the Zero Escape series, Never 7 proves to be a pretty good visual novel, though not one that can be widely recommended. Never 7 follows Makoto, a college student who never shows up for class. Because of this, he's forced to attend a summer seminar camp for a week with other students who he's never met as punishment. Oh no! A week of summer fun alone in a cabin with hot chicks? Oh, make the pain stop! However, on April the 1st, Makoto wakes up from a horrific nightmare, where an unknown girl has died on April the 6th, with a mysterious bell in her hands. Makoto soon finds that he's having frequent cases of deja vu, and all of his premonitions seem to be coming true. On top of this, Makoto and his group of 7 seem to have become ensnared in some kind of infinity loop, doomed to repeat April 1st to 6th, never reaching the 7th day. What's going on here? Are these people all connected somehow? What's the cause of these ridiculously accurate premonitions? But who cares about any of that when you've got tits? That's what this game basically answers. So yes, in case you haven't picked up on it, Never 7 is a choose-your-own-adventure style dating simulator, where you read along and make choices for your protagonist in order to score in a slice-of-life-like story. Most of the choices you have to make are self-explanatory, but it would help to have a guide nearby, as this game can take roughly 30 to 50 hours to beat and there's a lot of choices to make. Fortunately, you get a handy save feature and text skipper, so fear not. Your goal is to get the good ending for each of the girls, including the ultimate true ending that supposedly pieces it all together. And that's about it for the gameplay. Since this is a visual novel, I'll be spending most of the time talking about the plot. Avoiding major spoilers, of course. I have to say that right off the bat, this game doesn't start very strong. At least if you're going in by frequently comparing this to Ever 17, which I inevitably did. Perhaps it's just me, but during the first few hours, I really didn't like where this game was going. And the problems started with the characters themselves. I don't know if it was my disappointment at realizing this game was a more traditional visual novel, compared to the groundbreaking work of Ever 17 and Remember 11, or I simply couldn't stand these characters. I'll sum up my initial impressions of them. Okihiko is an infamously rich student, and he's just kind of a douchebag. He tries to hit on girls, failing spectacularly, and forms the butt end of most jokes. His only redeeming quality was that you love to hate his guts. There's Yuka, the extremely social and upbeat leader of the trip, and she does her best to cheer the others up, but she's also a drunk and extremely annoying when she constantly nags you. There's Haruka, the quiet one who claims that she has no heart. She's unsociable, blunt, and downright cold to the player. Saki's a bitch, plain and simple. She's rich, snooty, and generally disliked by the other characters for her overbearing nature and piss-poor attitude. Screw you, Saki. It's fitting that your parents named you after alcohol, because that's probably how you were born, you mistake. You later meet the Marino sisters, the older one being Izumi, a mature, responsible young woman who seems to be the only likable character to me, at least at the time, but you don't even get to interact with her until later in the game for plot reasons. Kurumi is Izumi's younger sister, and god is she annoying. She's a 17-year-old acting like she's 9, speaks in the third person, and she's clearly pandering to a certain audience. Well, she says she wants to be a jellyfish, and jellyfish have no brains. Perfect. And on top of all of this, the characters seem to be clones to the ones in Ever 17. Again, those were only my first impressions at the time. These characters do not start out as likable for the first chunk of the game, and the only one who seems okay is blocked until you get other endings. And the mystery story basically seems non-existent, as there's a more clear emphasis on the dating elements. I guess you could say that this game beats around the bush in terms of story. In fact, the first hours or so are just spent playing tennis, visiting hot springs, sitting down and talking about life. And here or there, the actual plot checks in, like a horrible babysitter. The stakes never felt really high, and there was rarely an element of danger, and it was filled with drama that was somewhat interesting and soap opera-ish, but then you start to forget that there's even a real plot to the game. You start to forget everything about the premonitions and such. It only pops up once in a while. However, the second half of each route, basically when your character has to repeat the 6 days, is when the plot finally picks up. Here, the writing gets really clever and interesting, as you have to go through Groundhog Day-like situations, noticing what you can change and what's inevitable. The jokes pick up as well, and the plot becomes more focused and interesting. And eventually, you do become more fond of these characters as you learn more about their struggles, and the plot focuses more on each of them. You do come to like Yuka, Kurumi, and Haruka, and hell, even Okihiko. But not Saki. I still hate Saki. Damn fictional character. The thing you need to understand is that Never 7 isn't as much of a mystery plot like Ever 17, but more of a traditional anime-like dating sim, with a mystery plot on the side. To me, this was pretty disappointing. People have seen this type of game literally thousands of times before. Why wouldn't you focus on the awesome pseudoscience concerning things like time travel and philosophy? Again, this is just my opinion, and I think it all sprouts from my annoyance with those type of shameless Japanese dating sims that just make you feel pathetic, like a loser with an online review show. There's always a shot of some girl in a bathing suit, in some kind of sexual situation, and, as required by Japanese law, a hot spring scene. Just look at this. Like, I know sex sells, but how mindless is the male audience supposed to be here? And it's so demoralizing to the women to objectify them this way, and they think that the male audience falls completely for this shit, and you're not even listening to a word I'm saying right now, are you? Okay, time to switch strategies. These lovely ladies would love it if you commented and subscribed. It would make them just orgasm with happiness. Gotcha. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Now, where the hell was I? I had a preconceived expectation that the Infinity series did have elements of love on the side, with the focus being on the gigantic mystery sci-fi plot, but this simply isn't the case with Never 7, as the formula is flipped. For the most part, the game is a dating simulation, as each of the 4 main routes you have to get follow the love story with a certain girl, with minor elements going towards the overall plot. So it's mostly a game where Makoto hits on 5 girls at once. Never 7, the end of Infinity? More like Always 69, the end of Fidelity. That's not to say that the traditional slice of life elements aren't fun either. These characters do have interesting developments, and there are a lot of great jokes and good times to be had throughout. Furthermore, a lot of the moments in this game touched me deeply, and really got inside of me. I tried to call the police, but they informed me that a video game can't be charged with rape, so I had to drop the charges. The overall issue I had was that the game had pretty uneven pacing, going rather slow in the beginning of each route, and not really picking up until halfway through towards the end of them. Again, this is only if you're like me, waiting for the giant jigsaw puzzle of a story to fall into place like Ever 17. There's definitely an audience for this more traditional slice of life stuff, but it's not me. It's not that I didn't have fun, I just wanted some more of that fascinating sci-fi plot twist that these writers are known for. However, it was worth the wait for me because when it hits, man does this game hit! The story finally comes full swing in all of its glory. Fascinating psychology, mind-blowing twists, friendships, betrayal, just what I expected from the series. The game makes you ponder interesting questions about determinism, the reliability of the narrator, and many other intriguing points that culminate in the final route. The stakes finally get higher and you become fully invested into what's going on. The story does get truly amazing and compelling when it adds up, with the really thought-provoking and fascinating ending, but this is hampered by two problems. Firstly, a couple of the plot twists are pretty far-fetched. They're just a little too unreasonable. Secondly, and more importantly, this game abuses the hell out of red herrings. Like they could start a business selling these. The game just loves to lead you on, making you believe one thing, or that this thing's gonna show up later, only to disprove it or deem it insignificant later on. Or certain things and characters prove to be ultimately irrelevant to the whole story. I understand doing this a little, but Never 7 pulled that shit way too much. Still, in the end, although it wasn't incredible like its sequels, the story of Never 7 was eventually memorable, complicated, and worth the ride. It's important not to forget that this is a fan-translated game, so how does the writing hold up? Well, in all honesty, if you gave me this game without telling me it was fan-translated, there's no way I would have noticed because the translation is fantastic. Ironically, it's probably better than the translation of Ever 17, which was done by professionals. I mean, naturally, I knows the hacker of Never 7 did an amazing job. The only minor complaint I have was that some of the Japanese puns were a bit too difficult to grasp. But I know this is extremely difficult for translations, and it never did take away from anything. Also, some of the dialogue was awkward, like when Haruka talks about finding her heart. But, again, not the translator's fault, that was probably in the original. The music in the game was hit and miss. There were some pretty good tracks like Once More and Magic of True, but a lot of it was forgettable synth, making it sound kind of like a Super Nintendo game at times, or at its worst, bad porno music. Or perhaps fittingly. Still, when the music was good, it was good. The graphics in the game were also decent, I guess. The little CGI in the intro was unimpressive, and they recycled a lot of the character reactions and locations. But that being said, it is a visual novel, so use your damn imagination. The character designs were also well done, and I swear that's what 90% of the effort goes into with these Japanese games. So although the graphics weren't groundbreaking, I wasn't expecting them to be, and they didn't need to be. They're colorful, memorable, and they get the job done. The voice acting was also passable, even though I didn't understand any of it because it was in Japanese, but it sounds like they were doing a good job, so I guess they were. In conclusion, is Never 7 a good game? Yes, definitely it is. It has a strong cast, strong writing, a thought-provoking story, and the music and visuals hold out. However, the fact that this is a traditional visual novel means that the focus is not on the overall mystery story, but more about the lighthearted and traditional dating sim elements. Slice of life fans will surely enjoy this game, while those looking for more of an Ever 17 and 999 style writing must prepare to be at least a little disappointed, as this game really differs in tone, pacing, and focus. Still, I'd say it's worth it just for the final route that ties into the rest of the Infinity series, and at least somewhat satisfied my hunger for a complex and interesting story. Whether you find the downloadable version or import a cheap copy, if you understand and accept what you're getting into, then give Never 7 a go. Although it's nowhere near as amazing as the latter works by this writer, it was still an enjoyable ride. Again, a final thanks to the wonderful work done by this translation team, and thanks for watching.